It is the coldest, most isolated, and least understood place on Earth. It's a continent of pure, blinding white, a void at the bottom of our world that we think we understand. We see it on our maps, a sprawling, stretched-out blob of white that seems to go on forever. But this map is a lie. The perception is an illusion. The true scale of Antarctica is staggering, a closely guarded secret of geography. This is not a small ice cap. It is the world's fifth largest continent, a landmass that absolutely dwarfs Australia and is larger than all of Europe combined. If you were to lay this frozen giant over North America, it would stretch from the Canadian Arctic all the way down to Mexico. Placed over Europe, it would swallow the land from the northern tip of Norway to the sands of Iran. It is a place of almost incomprehensible size, holding 90% of all the ice on our planet. And yet, it is almost completely empty. The human population across this vast expanse, larger than the entire United States, is laughably small. In the warm summer months, a mere 4,000 souls cling to life here. But when the endless winter night descends, swallowing the continent in darkness for months on end, that number plummets to just 1,000. The temperatures drop to a level that is hostile to life itself, a continent-wide plunge to beneath 34 degrees Celsius. This is a place that doesn't just resist human life, it actively tries to exterminate it. Getting there is a trial in itself. The continent is guarded by the most treacherous stretch of water on the globe, the infamous Drake Passage. This is the chasm between worlds, separating Antarctica from the closest city, Ushuaia in Argentina, by a 1,000-kilometer nightmare of water. Here, at the bottom of the world, the great southern Pacific and Atlantic Oceans merge. It is the only place on Earth where winds and currents can flow around the entire planet with nothing to stop them. They just build and build and build, picking up speed and strength until they become violent, churning monsters. The waves in the Drake Passage can climb to nearly 20 meters, or 65 feet high, liquid mountains rising from the black to smash ships to pieces. It's no wonder that for all of human history, Antarctica was nothing more than a blank space on ancient maps, a myth, a frozen hell at the edge of civilization. It's likely no human eye even saw the continent until a Russian ship finally pierced the veil in 1820. And today, more than 2 centuries later, we know almost nothing. We have mapped the surface of Mars with more accuracy than we have mapped our own southern continent. Because the Antarctica we see is not the real Antarctica, it is a mask. The true continent, the land, the rock, the secrets, it is all buried. It is hidden beneath an ice sheet so vast and so thick it defies imagination. On average, this ice is over 2 kilometers thick, but in its deepest places, the ice sheet stretches 5 kilometers straight down. That is the height of 6 Burj Khalifas, the world's tallest building, stacked one on top of the other. This ice is a tomb. 61% of all fresh water on Earth is locked away here, a sleeping giant. If it were to wake, if this ice were to melt, global sea levels would rise by 60 meters, obliterating Florida, swallowing the entire U.S. Gulf and East Coasts, and drowning coastal cities around the world. For centuries, this place has been a land of snow and silence. But as our technology advances, as we begin to peel back the layers, something strange is emerging. Whispers of hidden research zones, forbidden discoveries, and unexplained sightings have begun to deepen the mystery. This is a journey into what has been found, what has been hidden, and what is coming for us. We will examine the myths, the discoveries, and the terrifying truth of what makes this Earth's most mysterious and only forbidden continent. The ice is beginning to thaw, and the secrets it has kept for millions of years are finally coming to light. For decades, the ice held its secrets, a fortress of white. But as our eyes in the sky grew more powerful, technology advanced and exploration deepened, something strange began to emerge from the static. The images, beamed back from the most remote place on Earth, revealed shapes and patterns too symmetrical, too precise, and too wrong to be natural. The spark that lit the fire came in 2016, from an image captured over the remote Ellsworth Mountains. Hidden in that vast frozen range, one peak stood out, a stark impossibility against the landscape. It was a mountain with 4 sharp faces and a perfectly pointed top, its shape strikingly, undeniably familiar. It looked exactly like the pyramids of Giza. This formation, standing over 410-100 feet tall, wasn't some blurry anomaly. It was a clear geometric structure in one of the least explored places on our planet. Immediately, the scientific community moved to dismiss the growing whispers. Geologists explained that this was a nunatak, a common feature of a rocky peak sticking out above the ice. They claimed its pyramid-like shape was a simple, natural result of freeze-thaw weathering and millions of years of brutal wind erosion. They pointed to other similar peaks, like the famous Matterhorn in the Swiss Alps, as proof that nature can create surprisingly regular shapes. But the story doesn't end there, because this explanation has a glaring flaw. The Antarctic pyramid is unusual, even for a nunatak. Most natural peaks might have one or two triangular faces, but this structure appears to have four, a near-perfect geometric form that seems to defy the chaos of nature. Worse for the skeptics, the structure appears to be built with precise geometry. Its four sides align almost perfectly with the four cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. This is not a coincidence, this is a signature. This precision is why many researchers and independent theorists are convinced it is more than just a mountain. They argue this is the top of a massive, artificial structure, the peak of an ancient pyramid built by an intelligent hand and now almost entirely buried by the ice. Suddenly, the pyramids of Egypt, Mexico, and Peru take on a new light. They all share similar designs, wide bases, and that same strange alignment with cardinal directions. Could this Antarctic structure be the missing link? The single older source for a shared global architecture passed down from a lost civilization? But the pyramid isn't alone. As researchers and online sleuths pored over the high-altitude images, more impossible features resolved out of the white. They found large, dark shapes resembling enormous doorways carved directly into the mountain slopes. And in other areas, perfectly parallel patterns that looked for all the world like massive, man-made staircases. One of the most talked about formations is a massive, rectangular opening in a remote stretch of East Antarctica. The shape is too clean, its lines too sharp and geometric to be a simple cave. It stands out with perfect symmetry and a shadowed interior that screams artificial. Some analysts have estimated this doorway is huge, perhaps large enough to fly a full-sized aircraft into. Then there is the staircase. On one of the southernmost islands near the coast, a wide cave entrance was recorded at the base of a mountain. But leading up to this dark void are several horizontal, parallel lines, evenly spaced and rising one after another. It looks like nothing less than a grand staircase disappearing into the mountain's interior. Again, scientists offer explanations. They talk of ice movement, wind, and the way melting and refreezing can create gaps that look geometric. But these stair-like formations are difficult to explain with any current geological model. Natural layering of rock or snow simply does not create such clean, even, step-like platforms. But the most unsettling part? These features are not static. They change. In some satellite passes, the openings and steps are clearly visible. In others, they vanish completely, swallowed by new layers of snow. Then, after a seasonal shift or a brutal storm, they reappear, as if the continent is breathing, deciding what it wants to show us. These satellite images are more than just pictures. They are a warning. They are the first clue that the frozen desert we see today is hiding a history that could rewrite everything we know. The greatest secret isn't the structures, it's the land itself. The Antarctica we see, the white, frozen desert, is a modern anomaly. Long before it became a land of endless ice and howling winds, this continent was a world of thrumming green life, filled with forests, rivers, and mysterious possibilities. This isn't speculation, it's a fact buried in stone. For more than a century, geologists and paleobotanists have been pulling the fossilized remains of ancient forests from deep beneath Antarctica's icy crust. As far back as 1912, Robert Falcon Scott's doomed expedition made a stunning discovery just 500 kilometers from the South Pole. His men found fossilized leaves that looked just like those from modern beech trees. Though initially dismissed, later studies confirmed their shocking authenticity. On Alexander Island and the Antarctic Peninsula, the evidence is even more profound. Researchers found entire trees, fossilized upright, still rooted in the ancient soil they once thrived in. Some of these stone trunks stood 7 meters tall, surrounded by layers of pollen and leaves, the ghost of a lush, temperate rainforest that existed 100 million years ago. This lost world was part of a larger landscape filled with meandering rivers, coastal plains, and sprawling wetlands. Despite its polar location, the global climate was dramatically warmer, with average temperatures in the range of 13 to 21 degrees Celsius. These impossible conditions allowed evergreen species, conifers, and ferns to dominate the land, even during the long months of polar darkness. This green world, scientists assure us, died millions of years ago. The mainstream consensus is that Homo sapiens have only existed for about 300,000 years. And the Antarctic ice sheets, they claim, have been in place for far longer, at least 14 million years, based on the oldest known samples. This is the official story. But what if the timeline is fundamentally wrong? What if the ice is new? The evidence for a different, more recent history comes from one of the most enduring mysteries of all time, the Piri Reis map. Created in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral, this partial world map shows something that should not exist. It depicts the coastline of South America with stunning accuracy, and connected to it, a mysterious southern landmass. This landmass is in the exact location of Antarctica, but it is shown without the ice. This map is not alone. The Orontius-Phineas map, dated 1531, is even more shocking. It shows the entire continent of Antarctica free of ice. It details mountain ranges and interior features that we can now confirm, using ice-penetrating radar, are really there, buried under kilometers of ice. How could 16th century cartographers possibly know this? Piri Reis himself admitted in his writings that his map was not his own work, it was a compilation, using documents from a lost ancient civilization. The historian Charles Hapgood argued this was proof of a prehistoric, advanced seafaring culture that mapped the entire globe thousands of years before our history began. This is the bombshell. The last time the coast of Antarctica was free of ice was, at a minimum, 6,000 years ago. But the Orontius-Phineas map, showing the entire continent ice-free, would have to be based on maps drawn closer to 12,000 years ago. This is a time when, according to our history books, humans were not supposed to be sailing the globe, let alone mapping it with an accuracy that suggests aerial reconnaissance. This leads to a terrifying question. How could Antarctica be a temperate mapped landmass 12,000 years ago and a frozen wasteland today? The only possible answer is a cataclysm of unimaginable proportions. Charles Hapgood proposed a radical, terrifying theory, true polar wander or crustal displacement. He argued that 12,000 years ago, Antarctica wasn't at the South Pole. It was a temperate landmass, home to an advanced civilization, perhaps the very Atlantis that Plato described. Then, suddenly, the entire outer shell of the Earth moved. Hapgood believed the planet's surface could shift dramatically over the molten inner layers, dragging entire continents into new climate zones. In this single violent event, Antarctica was thrown 1,000 miles, plunging it directly into the frigid polar latitudes it occupies today. What could possibly cause such an event? Italian naval engineer Flavio Barbiero proposed a major impact event. This aligns perfectly with what we now call the Younger Dryas impact. The moment, 12,800 years ago, when a fragmented comet is believed to have struck the Earth, melting the ice sheets and causing sea levels to rise hundreds of feet. If this impact also shifted the Earth's crust, the destruction would have been absolute. The civilization living on Antarctica would be destroyed almost instantly, and the layers of ice, miles thick, would begin to build immediately, entombing their world, their cities, and their pyramids. A civilization under the ice, just waiting to be found. If an advanced civilization was flash frozen 12,000 years ago, what's left? Ruins? Bodies? Or something else? What if the pyramids and doorways aren't just tombs? What if they are gateways? This is where the mystery of Antarctica turns dark. Because long before modern satellites peered through the ice, the world's most secret-obsessed and ruthless regimes were already fixated on the frozen continent. They weren't looking for fossils. They were looking for power. In 1938, on the brink of a world war, Adolf Hitler authorized a top-secret Antarctic mission. On the surface, the goal was resources. Germany needed whale oil, a critical ingredient for margarine and soap, to achieve self-sufficiency for the coming conflict. On December 17, 1938, the vessel MS Schwabenland slipped out of Hamburg harbor, its true purpose hidden from the world. When it reached the ice, it launched 2 seaplanes, which surveyed over 600,000 square kilometers of unclaimed land. They dropped aluminum darts marked with swastikas, claiming this new territory for the Reich, Neuschwabenland. The official mission ended just months before the war began. But the whispers and rumors had only just started. Post-war, a new and terrifying narrative began to emerge. The real purpose of the expedition, it was said, was not whale oil. It was to establish a permanent hidden foothold on the continent, a base buried deep beneath the ice, far from the reach of enemy bombers. This was Base 211, a last redoubt, a safe haven for the Nazi elite, and a research facility to develop their most terrifying superweapons. This idea might sound insane, but events after Germany's surrender only fed the suspicion. In July 1945, 2 months after the war in Europe ended, the German submarine U-530 mysteriously appeared at an Argentine naval base. The next month, another submarine, U-977, arrived under the same bizarre circumstances. Their commanders gave no satisfactory explanation for their long, silent journeys. The rumors were explosive. They had delivered high-ranking Nazis, perhaps even Hitler himself, along with priceless cargo and advanced technology to the secret Antarctic outpost before finally surrendering. The Allies, it seems, took these rumors very, very seriously. In 1946, the United States launched Operation Highjump, the largest Antarctic military expedition in history. This was no small scientific trip. This was an invasion fleet. Led by the legendary Admiral Richard E. Byrd, the task force included over 4,700 men, 13 ships, and dozens of aircraft, including an aircraft carrier. The official story was a scientific mission aimed at training personnel and mapping the continent. But the scale, the urgency, and the sheer military might of the operation told a different story. Theorists are convinced that Byrd's fleet was sent on a single mission to find, investigate, and eliminate the Nazi presence still active on the continent. And this is where the official record goes silent and the chilling eyewitness accounts begin. Operation Highjump was supposed to last for 6 months. Instead, it was cut disastrously short, ending in just 6 weeks. The fleet limped home, the mission abruptly terminated. The official report blamed poor weather. But the men who were there told a different story. They spoke of damaged aircraft, unexplained losses, and terrifying encounters. Eyewitnesses claimed they were chased out of the area by aggressive, silent, flying disc-shaped craft that emerged from the ice and attacked the Navy fleet. Something had gone horribly wrong. Or perhaps something impossible had been found. This is where the official record ends and the forbidden story begins. Years later, a document began to circulate, a so-called secret diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, detailing what really happened on that mission. It tells a story so fantastic, so reality-shattering, that it was allegedly ordered to be silenced for the sake of all humanity. The entry is dated February 19, 1947, during a reconnaissance flight over the North Pole. This is a key point of confusion in the lore. The source document, Real History, incorrectly states Operation Highjump was at the North Pole, while other documents and historical fact place it in Antarctica. We will follow the diary's narrative as written in the sources. The log begins with Byrd stating he is not at liberty to disclose the following documentation, but that he must record here so that everyone can read it someday. At 8:09 hours, the flight is routine. Vast ice and snow stretch out below. But then, he notices a yellowish coloration on the snow, dispersed in a strange linear pattern. As he circles to examine it, he also sees reddish and purple hues. At 8:09 hours, his controls begin to fail. Both the magnetic and gyro compasses start to gyrate and wobble. He is unable to hold his heading by instrumentation. At 8:05 hours, he sees them in the distance. Mountains. a small range that he has never seen before and that has no right to be there. At 1,000 hours, he crosses over the mountain range. What he sees below him is impossible. It is not ice. It is a valley, a small river running through the center. There is a green valley below him. To the port side, he sees great forest growing on the mountain slopes. His navigation instruments are still spinning, the gyroscope oscillating wildly. He alters his altitude to 1,400 feet and executes a sharp left turn to get a better look. The valley is green with moss or a type of tight-knit grass. The light itself seems different, and he can no longer see the sun. He spots a large animal moving below. It looks like an elephant. No, it is a mammoth. He confirms it with his binoculars. A living, breathing mammoth in a warm green valley, supposedly at the pole. This is incredible. This is abnormal. At 10:30 hours, he sees more rolling green hills. The external temperature indicator reads 74 degrees Fahrenheit. His radio is not functioning. At 11:30 hours, the countryside below looks level and normal. But ahead, he spots a city. This is impossible. And then they appear. My God, he writes. Off his port and starboard wings are a strange type of aircraft. They are disc-shaped and have a radiant quality to them, and they are closing fast. He sees markings on them, a type of swastika. His controls refuse to respond. He is caught in an invisible vice grip of some type. At 11:35 hours, his radio crackles to life. A voice comes through in English with what he describes as a slight Nordic or Germanic accent. The message is, "Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. We shall land you in exactly 7 minutes." He notes that the engines of his plane have stopped running. The aircraft is under some strange control and is turning itself, the controls completely useless. At 11:40 hours, another message is received. The landing process begins. The plane descends as though caught in some great unseen elevator, touching down with only a slight jolt. He makes a hasty last entry in the flight log. Several men are approaching the aircraft on foot. They are tall, with blonde hair. In the distance is a large, shimmering city, pulsating with rainbow hues of color. He sees no weapons on those approaching. He hears a voice ordering him by name to open the cargo door. He complies. The log ends. What followed was not recorded in the log, but seared into the Admiral's memory. Byrd and his radio operator, Hal, were escorted from their plane. They weren't forced to walk. They were placed on a flying platform, a type of conveyance without wheels that moved silently, taking them toward the shimmering, crystalline city. They were brought into a building unlike anything he had ever seen, into a large, ornate room where they were offered a delicious, warm drink that neither man recognized. A door opened silently. Byrd was invited to go alone and speak with the Master. He entered a room where an old man with delicate and refined features sat at a table. The Master told the Admiral not to be afraid. He had been allowed to enter, he was told, because he was a man of good-hearted character, well known on the surface world. Then came the revelation. "You are in the domain of the Ariani," the Master said, "the inner world of Earth." The Master explained that their interest in the surface world began just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was at that alarming time, he said, that they sent their flying machines, the Flugelrads, to the surface to investigate what humanity had done. But their peaceful attempts at contact were met with hostility. Their Flugelrads were fired upon, pursued with malice and animosity by surface fighter planes. "Now you have been chosen to be witness here that our world does exist," the Master declared. "Our culture and science is many thousands of years beyond your race, Admiral." The message turned from a welcome to a dire warning. "Your race has now reached the point of no return," the Master warned, "for there are those amongst you who would destroy your very world rather than relinquish their power. There is a great storm gathering in your world," he continued, "a black fury that will not spend itself for many years." He warned that the recent world war was only a prelude of what is yet to come for your race. There will be no answer in your arms. There will be no safety in your science. Byrd was told to return to his superiors with their message, a desperate call for peace. He and Hal were safely escorted back to their plane, their instruments miraculously working. They returned to the fleet, their world and their reality shattered. According to the legend, When Admiral Byrd landed back at the Highjump base, he immediately reported his encounter to the high commanders at the Pentagon. The response was not curiosity, it was fear. He was ordered to be silent. Even the President of the United States, Harry S. Truman, was allegedly informed. Byrd, a decorated officer and a soldier to his core, accepted the orders in the name of humanity and said nothing. But the story didn't die. The mission was abruptly cut short. The fleet returned, and Byrd's public statements were cryptic and laced with terror. In a rare interview published in Chile in March 1947, Byrd didn't talk about green valleys or flugelrads, but he did warn that the US might one day be attacked by objects which could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. For many, this was his way of hinting at the truth, but the military establishment moved quickly. Soon after, Byrd was reportedly hospitalized and forbidden from holding press conferences on the subject again. He died in his sleep in 1957 with quiet claims of foul play whispered in the shadows. The mystery deepened when his son, who some claim witnessed his father's accounts, was later found dead in a New York warehouse. Of course, this document has never been confirmed as authentic. Skeptics claim the diary is a complete fake, a fabrication that first appeared in a 1957 book called The World Beyond the Poles. Byrd himself, they point out, never publicly made these claims. But the story lived on, an unkillable legend. It was fueled by the undeniable secrecy of Operation Highjump, the sudden and unexplained retreat, and the Admiral's own chilling public warnings. Was it a hoax? Or was it the truth of a man who saw another world and was silenced for it? Byrd's story, whether fact or fiction, tore open a rabbit hole that went deeper than any ice core. The details he allegedly recorded, the flugelrads, the swastika markings, the Germanic accents, were not random. They were a direct link to one of the 20th century's most persistent and terrifying legends, the Nazi secret weapons program. During the war, German scientists were decades ahead of the Allies, working on jet aircraft, long-range rockets, and experimental propulsion systems that defied belief. But alongside this science was something else. Parts of the Nazi leadership, particularly within the SS, were deeply enmeshed in the occult, ancient myths, and the search for hidden ancestral powers. This is the shadowy world of the Thule and Vril societies. These secret groups allegedly believed in a mysterious energy source called Vril, a force that could power machines and, perhaps, even open gateways to other worlds. According to these theories, they practiced rituals to contact non-human intelligences, beings from other planets, or perhaps the Ariani from within the Earth itself. This wasn't just spiritual, it was allegedly technological. Names like Hombu and Vril appear in these stories, describing experimental disc-shaped aircraft, silent and powered by unknown energy, possibly even anti-gravity. And then there was Die Glock, the bell. This was supposedly the crown jewel, a bell-shaped machine that gave off a strange glow, made eerie noises, and, some claimed, had the power to manipulate time and space itself. After the war, these stories exploded. In 1947, the same year as Operation Highjump, the world saw the first major wave of flying saucer sightings. Was it a coincidence, or was it something more? That same year, the United States launched Operation Paperclip, a secret program that rounded up hundreds of top Nazi scientists, the very men who worked on these weapons, and brought them to America. They went on to build the U.S. rocket program and its advanced aircraft. The Soviet Union, in its own race, captured its own share of scientists and documents. The terrifying question is, what exactly did they bring with them? Were the UFOs seen over America just test flights of secret machines built from captured Nazi designs? The theory goes even deeper. Some believe the Nazis didn't build these machines alone. They believe that Hitler's inner circle made contact with non-human beings who shared their technology in a secret, unholy alliance. And when the war was lost, these top scientists and their alien technology didn't surrender. They simply relocated to Base 211, to Neuschwabenland, to Antarctica. Historians will tell you there is no solid evidence for any of this. But the stories have never ever disappeared. The age of state-sponsored expeditions like Highjump is over. Today, the continent is being scanned inch by inch, not by admirals, but by millions of online sleuths using the most powerful tool available, Google Earth. And what they are finding is reigniting the mystery. In recent years, one particular image from the southern Atlantic sector drew international attention. It shows a long, straight trail gouged into the ice, as if something massive had skidded across the surface. At the end of this trail sits a massive, dark object, resting at an angle, half buried in the snow. It has been labeled by many as the crash site of a large, unidentified flying object. Elsewhere, a satellite photo captured a strange oval structure, its smooth, symmetrical, and rounded shape standing out starkly against the natural landscape. It seems perfectly artificial. Some claim it looks like a large disk, a buried craft being uncovered by the melting ice. Others believe it's not a machine, but an entrance, the roof of an underground facility, a modern-day Base 211. Then there is the face. Deep in the southeastern region, users spotted what looks like the frozen, colossal features of a humanoid head, eyes, a nose, and a mouth, all carved into the white surface. It was instantly compared to the infamous face on Mars, a sign that someone or something had left its mark in the ice. The anomalies don't stop. A lonely iceberg caught attention for looking eerily like a massive ship, tilted and half submerged. From the right angle, it looks like a cruise liner made of ice, complete with what appear to be windows, a deck, and even funnels. Even the continent's wildlife holds dark puzzles. Perfectly preserved, mummified seal bodies have been found miles away from the ocean, high in the mountains. They are hundreds, sometimes thousands of years old, found far from any migration path or food source. No one fully understands how or why they ended up there, dying so far from home. Scientists, of course, have logical explanations for all of this. The crashed UFO is just a boulder that rolled down a hill. The face is a classic case of pareidolia, our brain seeing patterns in random rock and ice. The ice ship is just a uniquely fractured iceberg. But for many, these explanations are not convincing. They feel too easy, too dismissive. For them, the real proof of a cover-up isn't any single photograph. It's the fact that Antarctica remains, to this day, the most restricted, heavily controlled, and forbidden continent on Earth. And the root of that control is one of the strangest political documents in human history. This is the heart of the mystery. The fact that this continent, larger than the United States, is the only place on Earth that you are not allowed to go. The lockdown began on December 1st, 1959, at the absolute height of the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a stalemate, their fingers on the nuclear triggers, racing to conquer space and dominate the globe. They agreed on nothing, except for this. In a move that defies all political logic, these 12 rival nations, including the US, the USSR, and the UK, came together and signed the Antarctic Treaty. It was an agreement of sudden cooperation in the midst of deep existential conflict. On the surface, it seemed noble. The treaty declared that the entire continent south of the 60th parallel would be used only for peaceful purposes. All military activity was banned. All nuclear tests were banned. All radioactive waste dumping was banned. Most importantly, it explicitly forbid the harvesting of any resources. No mining, no drilling, nothing. The treaty also did something unprecedented. It froze all 7 of the existing competing territorial claims from nations like the UK, Argentina, and Chile, rendering them legally unenforceable. It was a total reset. It was a lockdown. This is the question that fuels every conspiracy. What on earth could be so important, so terrifying, or so valuable that it forced the world's 2 greatest enemies to call a truce? What did they both find down there that made them agree to lock the continent away from all of humanity? Because make no mistake, it is a lockdown. You cannot simply go to Antarctica. The vast interior, millions of square kilometers, remains almost completely inaccessible. Tourists are allowed, but only on pre-approved supervised trips to specific coastal areas. You cannot explore on your own. You cannot fly a plane over the pyramid. You cannot visit the crashed disk. These areas are protected, marked as no-fly zones. The official reason given is to protect the fragile ecosystem. But this is a convenient excuse. Most of the surface is a dead, frozen wasteland. The treaty isn't protecting the ice. It's protecting what's under it. The secrecy, the surveillance, the restrictions, it all points to a truth being kept from us. Theorists believe the treaty exists to hide one of three possibilities. 1. They found the ruins of a lost civilization, perhaps Atlantis, and are secretly plundering its technology. 2. They found alien technology, or perhaps a still active base, and the treaty is a pact of silence. Or 3, and this is the most chilling, the governments of the world are not working together to hide the secret. They are working with the aliens in a joint occupation, and the treaty is the rulebook for their cooperation. There is a rumor, a dark whisper in geopolitical circles, that World War III will not come from Russia or the Middle East. It will come the day one nation gets brave enough to break the Antarctic Treaty. And that day may be coming sooner than we think. The treaty is the official story. But the real story comes from the men who were there. The men who saw things they were never supposed to see and who were ordered to forget. His name is Brian. Or at least that's the name he uses. He's a retired Navy flight engineer who, for 20 years, flew hundreds of missions over Antarctica. Most were milk runs, routine cargo, and personnel transports, until one mission changed everything. In the early 1980s, his C-130 crew was scrambled for an emergency transport. An injured scientist at Davis Station, on the complete opposite side of the continent, needed immediate evacuation. The crew took on medical staff at McMurdo and set a course, but there was a problem. The navigator plotted the most direct route, and it went straight over a remote area labeled Air Sampling Station. This was a no-fly zone. It was strictly off-limits, but a life was on the line. They violated the no-fly zone. As the plane gained altitude, Brian looked down and saw it. It wasn't a station, it was a hole. A perfect, massive, 300-foot wide hole carved directly into the ice, and it was active. There were tracks from heavy machinery all over the area, tracks that extended down into the gaping dark maw. This was a secret, busy entrance to somewhere deep beneath the ice. After safely delivering their patient, the crew was summoned, not to their commander, but to a special office. Waiting for them was an officer they'd never seen and two other men. They were dressed in plain, dark suits, men in black. In the middle of Antarctica, they didn't ask questions, they gave an order. "Gentlemen," one of them said, "what you saw, you did not see. You were not over that area. You will never go over that area. You will never go over that area. You will never go over that area. You will never, ever talk about this again. Understood?" Brian didn't think much of it until months later, flying scientists to the South Pole Dome. In the galley, he overheard civilians talking. They were talking about the infamous air sampling station, the one with the Fargan ice hole. They were talking about going back out there to meet visitors. Brian finally asked what they meant. "What do you mean by visitors?" he asked. The man looked at him strangely. "My impression was that they weren't human. It seemed to me they were talking about an extraterrestrial or an alien." Brian's story doesn't end there. Years later, in November 1995, his C-13 crew got another urgent call. A team of 15 scientists at a remote camp in Marie Birdland had gone silent. McMurdo hadn't heard from them in 2 days. When the C-13 arrived, the weather was clear. They could see the camp perfectly. The huts were there. The fuel tanks were full. The snowmobiles were lined up. Everything was in perfect order. But there was no one. The camp was pristine, but empty. No tracks, no signs of a struggle, no bodies. The 15 scientists had, quite simply, vanished. The crew flew one last search pattern and returned to base, baffled. Over a week later, the call came. Urgent. Scramble now. The scientists were back. They had just radioed in a blind panic. They wanted out, and they wanted out right now. When Brian's crew landed, the scientists were there, their gear haphazardly packed. They boarded the aircraft in absolute terrifying silence. The crew asked them what was wrong, if they were okay. The scientists just stared, their faces catatonic. They were in a state of profound shock. For the entire 2-hour flight back, nobody uttered a single word. When the C-130 landed at McMurdo, the scientists were told they were being immediately transferred to another plane. They didn't move. They couldn't move. Someone had to physically go into the plane, unbuckle each scientist, and lead them like zombies to the next aircraft, which flew them away, forever. Their research gear? It was placed in an empty storage facility and locked. It was quarantined. The rescue crew was told not to go near it. That gear, Brian later learned, would eventually be taken to a very specific place, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, the legendary home of Project Blue Book and, according to UFO lore, the final resting place of the Roswell crash. Brian and his crew were called into the commander's office. Inside, waiting for them, were two men in plain clothes newly arrived from Washington, D.C. They told the crew, in no uncertain terms, that they would never speak of this incident, not the missing scientists, not the quarantined equipment, not the location. None of this ever happened. But the stories don't just come from the air, they come from the ground. From the elite covert operators sent into the white void to retrieve things that were never meant to be found. In 2003, a Navy SEAL team was dispatched from McMurdo Base to the desolate Beardmore Glacier region. Their commander, known only by his codename Spartan 1, was given an unusual mission. Officially, it was reconnaissance. Unofficially, it was an extraction operation. His team was ordered to find a lone scientist and his research. The research, they were told, was extremely important and had to be protected at all costs. As the SEAL team approached the coordinates, they didn't find a tent or a small research outpost. They saw it. Protruding about 18 feet from the melting ice and snow was the top of a black, octagonal structure. Spartan 1 approached and stood before a colossal door, 23 feet high and an unbelievable 18 feet thick. It was covered in strange markings that he thought looked like a star map. In the top right corner was a symbol, a triangle with two lines crossing through the center. Years later, when shown a picture of a mysterious coin found in Mexico City, he confirmed it was the exact same marking. He gently pushed on the door. The massive, multi-ton slab of unknown material swung open easily, perfectly balanced. The team entered. The external temperature was 40 degrees below zero. Inside the building, the temperature was a stable, comfortable 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. The door gently closed behind them, sealing them in an eerie, humming silence. They were standing in a single room so vast it covered 9 acres, as long as 7 football fields. There were no light fixtures. The walls themselves were generating a soft, lime green light, and the walls were covered, from floor to ceiling, in rows and rows of carved characters, glyphs that looked like Egyptian hieroglyphs, but were definitively not Egyptian, nor were they Mayan. At the far end of the room, they found the scientist, calmly taking pictures and samples. Spartan 1 asked him how big this place was. The scientist just pointed to a ramp at the end of the room, a ramp that extended down, spiraling deep into the rest of the building, deep under the ice. In total, he said, the structure covered 62 acres, and it was just one of several structures in the area. This discovery was in 2003. It was just 1 year after a television crew from a California production company called Atlantis TV went missing in Antarctica. They were rumored to be investigating reports of a massive archaeological dig, rumored to be happening 2 miles beneath the ice. A videotape was reportedly recovered from their abandoned camp by Navy rescuers. According to officers who saw it, the tape showed spectacular ruins and other things they couldn't go into. The U.S. military immediately blocked the tape from being released, and the production company, after suing to get their property back, eventually went out of business. According to Spartan 1, other entrances to this structure have been found since 2003, but they are accessible only by submarine, by traveling 2 miles under the ice shelf to enter from below. And unlike that silent, empty top room, the lower levels are occupied. And they are not occupied by humans. You don't need secret diaries or anonymous whistleblowers to find the unbelievable in Antarctica. The truth, as discovered by mainstream, peer-reviewed science, is in many ways even more bizarre. While the world was looking for Nazi bases, scientists were drilling into the ice, and they found a world that should not exist. They found water. Not just a little melt, but a vast, interconnected network of liquid lakes and rivers, trapped kilometers beneath the solid ice cap. Over 400 of these subglacial lakes have now been identified, kept liquid not by the sun, but by the crushing pressure of the ice above and the faint geothermal heat from the Earth's core. The most famous is Lake Vostok. Discovered by Russian researchers in the 1990s, it is an inland sea of fresh water buried nearly 4,000 meters beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet. It is one of the largest lakes on Earth, bigger than Lake Ontario, and it has been completely sealed off from the outside world, from air and from light for at least 15 million years. It is an alien world on our own planet, an ecosystem evolving in complete isolation, in total darkness for eons. What could possibly be alive down there? In 2012, a Russian team, after decades of painstaking effort, finally drilled through the 4-kilometer ice shield and touched the lake's surface. The first samples were widely criticized as being contaminated by the drilling fluids. But even in that contaminated soup, they found at least one bacteria species that is presently unknown, with no matches in any international database. A second, cleaner sample was reportedly taken in 2015. The results have never been published. But in 2021, a team from New Zealand gave us a shocking glimpse of what's really going on. They melted a small hole through a glacier 500 kilometers from the open ocean, lowering a camera down into a cavern of liquid water 500 meters below the surface. They expected to find nothing. Instead, their camera was swarmed. The dark, isolated cavern was absolutely teeming with life. Hundreds of blurry orange blotches filled the feed, shrimp-like marine crustaceans called amphipods, complex animals thriving in a place that should be sterile. This proves that life is not just surviving down there, it is flourishing. In other locations, scientists drilling into the Filchner-Ronne ice shelf found something even more baffling. On a boulder, on the seafloor, 260 kilometers from the nearest sunlight, they found stationary animals, sponges, unknown filter feeders, creatures that, by all laws of biology, should not exist in a place with no food and no light. Under Lake Enigma, researchers found rich microbial mats that look like carpets in strange tree-like formations on the lakebed, a level of biological complexity that surprised everyone. The ice is not a tomb. It is an incubator. Then there is the anomaly known as Blood Falls. Deep in the McMurdo Dry Valleys, a 5-story waterfall of vivid, shocking, bright red water bleeds from the tongue of the Taylor Glacier. It looks like the glacier itself has been wounded. For decades, it was a haunting, unexplained mystery. Now, science has the answer, and it's just as strange as any myth. More than 5 million years ago, this area was part of the ocean. When the glacier advanced, it trapped a pocket of that ancient seawater, sealing it off from light, oxygen, and the atmosphere. Over millions of years, that trapped water grew incredibly salty and concentrated with iron from the bedrock. Today, the pressure from the glacier squeezes this ancient, iron-rich water out through a fissure. When the brine hits the open air for the first time in millennia, the iron instantly oxidizes. It rusts, turning the water a deep, disturbing red. But the story doesn't end there. Inside that dark, oxygen-free, iron-filled water is an isolated ecosystem of microscopic life. These are extremophile microbes that have evolved to survive by breathing iron and sulfur instead of oxygen. They are, in essence, in alien biology, offering a blueprint for how life could exist on icy worlds like Europa or Enceladus. But the strangest discoveries aren't the life forms. They are the land itself. Using ice-penetrating radar, scientists have mapped a vast, ancient landscape the size of Belgium, hidden beneath the ice. It's a world of buried valleys, hills, and riverbeds, untouched for at least 14 million years. In 1958, a Soviet team discovered the Gamburtsev mountain range. This is a chain of mountains, the same size and height as the European Alps, with peaks soaring to 2,700 meters. They are completely and totally invisible, buried beneath 600 meters of solid ice. And then, in 2019, came the most staggering discovery of all. Beneath the Denman Glacier, scientists found the deepest canyon on Earth. If the ice were removed, you would be looking at a chasm that plummets 3.5 kilometers below sea level. That is more than 8.5 times deeper than the lowest exposed land on Earth, the Dead Sea. We didn't even know it existed. But the biggest secret, the one that dwarfs all others, is a gravity anomaly in a remote part of East Antarctica. In the 1950s, researchers detected a huge area, 243 kilometers wide, where the pull of Earth's gravity is mysteriously weaker. For decades, no one knew why. Then, in 2006, a team from Ohio State University, using NASA satellite data, put forward a theory. That anomaly, they believe, is an ancient 480-kilometer wide meteorite impact crater. It is a scar nearly 3 times larger than the Chicxulub crater, the impact that wiped out the dinosaurs. To create a wound this large, the asteroid would have had to be 40 to 50 kilometers wide. But it's the timing that is so terrifying. The researchers believe the impact happened sometime between 100 and 500 million years ago. This timeline lines up perfectly with the single greatest mass extinction event in our planet's history, the Permian-Triassic extinction, also known as the Great Dying. This was an apocalyptic event that annihilated 90% of all marine species and 70% of all land vertebrates. We have never known what caused it. It could be that the Antarctic ice sheet this entire time has been hiding the murder weapon for our planet's greatest apocalypse. But the ice holds more than just ruins and ancient microbes. It holds stories, tales of things seen in the endless white, felt in the crippling isolation, and encountered in the black, crushing depths. These are the legends that science cannot explain away with geology. Among the most persistent and terrifying legends is that of the Ningen. Japanese research vessels navigating the icy waters have reported seeing massive, pale white beings rising silently from the depths. They are described as being up to 30 meters long, with a horrifyingly humanoid shape. Witnesses claim to have seen a face, eerily human, with 2 small eyes and a wide, expressionless mouth. Some reports describe them having arms and 5-fingered hands. Others say they are smooth and finned, barely distinguishable from the icebergs they drift near, phantoms of the frozen ocean. The legend, which first appeared online in the 2000s, has taken on a life of its own. Some believe it's an unknown form of marine life, a relic from the warm Antarctica of the past. Others speculate that governments know exactly what they are and that their existence is deliberately kept secret, a biological asset of terrifying strategic significance. This is the third man phenomenon. It's a feeling, an unshakable sensation reported by countless explorers pushing the limits of human endurance. It is the feeling of being watched, of an unseen presence walking just behind you in the snow. The most famous account comes from Sir Ernest Shackleton himself. In 1906, during his desperate, impossible trek across South Georgia Island, he reported the distinct sensation that a 4th member was walking with his small 3-man group. He wasn't alone. Both of his companions later confirmed they had felt the exact same thing. In the long, black winters, in the extreme isolation of the remote research stations, this feeling is common. Personnel report hearing unexplained noises, footsteps on the snow outside their empty huts, doors creaking open, and disembodied voices carried on the wind. Scientists dismiss this as the psychological effects of isolation and sensory deprivation. But those who have felt it insist it is something else. The stories can be darker still. One of the most unsettling tales in all of polar lore dates back to the 1840s. A British whaling ship, the Hope, was navigating near the South Shetland Islands when its crew spotted another vessel, a schooner, trapped fast in the ice. As they approached, they identified the ship as the Jenny. What they found inside was a scene of perfect frozen horror. The crew of the Jenny was still on board, 7 men all dead, but frozen solid in place, upright at their stations. The final entry in the ship's logbook, written by the captain, told the story. May 4th, 1823, it read, "No food for 71 days. I am the only one left alive." They had been frozen there, a silent, macabre monument, for nearly 20 years. The crew of the Hope documented the discovery, but left the vessel as they found it, locked in its icy tomb, a warning to all who ventured too far south. All these secrets, the pyramids, the bases, the phantom lifeforms, have been protected by one thing, the ice. For thousands of years, the continent's frozen shell has been its greatest defense, a near impenetrable shield. But that shield is cracking. The greatest threat to Antarctica's mysteries is not an army or an admiral. It is us. It is our world. The planet is warming. And as the globe heats up, the ice is beginning to retreat, revealing the secrets that have been locked away in the dark. The isolation that has defined Antarctica for millennia is breaking down. And as the barriers weaken, the first aliens have already arrived. They aren't coming in disc-shaped craft. They are being carried in on our ships, our planes, and the soles of our shoes. Scientists call them non-native species, but in this pristine, balanced ecosystem, they are an invasion force. In 2014, a hydroponic facility at Australia's Davis Station was suddenly overrun by a tiny alien species, a springtail, that had never been seen on the continent. The scientists responded not with curiosity, but with terror. The entire facility was shut down, sterilized, and treated like a viral outbreak. In other stations, a mushroom fly was found in a sewage system and proved impossible to eradicate for over 20 years. Mussels from distant oceans have been found clinging to the hulls of ships, ready to colonize the Antarctic peninsula. These tiny intruders are the vanguard of a biological catastrophe, ready to overwhelm and change the native ecosystem forever. This is the great ironic twist. While we search the ice for signs of extraterrestrial life, we are simultaneously introducing our own alien life forms, changing the continent in ways we cannot predict. The invasion of Antarctica has already begun. The invaders are only here for one reason: the continent is becoming more hospitable. The Antarctic Peninsula is one of the fastest warming places on Earth, with temperatures in some regions increasing by nearly 3 degrees Celsius in just the last 50 years. Glaciers are in full retreat, and entire ice shelves have begun to collapse. This isn't just a local problem. Antarctica holds 90% of the world's freshwater. The complete melting of just the West Antarctic ice sheet would raise global sea levels by more than 3 meters, drowning coastal cities worldwide. And scientists fear that this process may have already passed the point of no return. As the ice recedes, we are forced to ask a question that once seemed like science fiction: will Antarctica become green again? It may sound impossible, but we know this continent was not always a wasteland. 100 million years ago, it was a warm, forested land teeming with life. Beneath the ice we see today lie the frozen remnants of ancient rivers, valleys, and entire landscapes just waiting to thaw. This is already happening. Invasive species like bluegrass have been spotted taking root on the peninsula. Colonies of gentoo penguins, which prefer milder conditions, have begun moving farther south, colonizing new territory as the ice retreats. Scientists believe that by the end of this century, parts of the coast may support grasslands and, in the next 200 years, even limited agriculture. A green Antarctica. It sounds like a new beginning, but this potential greening comes at a terrible price. It means our world, the world we know, will have been flooded, broken, and remade. And this is where all the threads come together. The secrecy, the resources, the treaty, the 1959 Antarctic Treaty, the document that locked the continent away, explicitly forbids any resource exploitation. But in May of 2024, a Russian research ship operating in the Weddell Sea, an area in the epicenter of the overlapping disputed claims of the UK, Argentina, and Chile, made a discovery that will change the future of our planet. They found oil, a gargantuan, unbelievable deposit estimated to contain 511 billion barrels. To put that in perspective, that is double the entire proven reserves of Saudi Arabia. It is 10 times the amount of oil the entire North Sea has produced in the last 50 years. At today's prices, that single field is worth a staggering 44 trillion. Suddenly, the gentleman's agreement of the Antarctic Treaty seems very fragile. This discovery reignites the bitter dispute between the UK and Argentina over the nearby Falkland Islands, a dispute that already led to war in 1982. The UK's control of those islands is the legal basis for its claim over the oil field. Argentina, whose economy is in ruins, now has a $44 trillion incentive to challenge that claim again. And here is the final, terrifying piece. The Antarctic Treaty, the only thing stopping these nations from starting a resource war at the bottom of the world, is up for review in 2048. As the ice melts, the clock is ticking. The competition for the continent's newly accessible resources and for the ancient secrets it has hidden is about to begin. The great storm that the master of the Ariani warned Admiral Byrd about, it may be about to break. So, where does this leave us? What is the real truth buried beneath the ice? We have pyramid-shaped mountains that geologists with complete confidence explain away as nunataks. They are natural rock formations, they say, carved by nothing more than wind and ice. We have a crashed spaceship that, when you see the full satellite image, looks suspiciously like a boulder that has simply and quite naturally rolled down a hill. We have an alien face staring up from the snow, but our brains are biologically wired for pareidolia, a trick of the mind that finds human patterns in random, chaotic shapes. What about the Whistleblowers? Brian, the flight engineer with his Fargan ice hole. His story is incredible, but he is a single, anonymous source. We have no photographs of this 300-foot hole. The 15 scientists who vanished and returned as zombies? They're not talking. And Spartan 1, the Navy SEAL who walked into a 62-acre, light-generating octagon? Again, we have only his word. It is so easy, and perhaps so comforting, to dismiss all of this, to label it as a collection of campfire stories, hoaxes, and fantasies. But it is not that simple, because the real story, the one confirmed by peer-reviewed mainstream science, is in every way just as bizarre and just as terrifying. We know there is a mountain range the size of the European Alps, completely invisible, buried under 600 meters of ice. We know there is a canyon hidden beneath the Dinman Glacier that is deeper than any other canyon on the face of the Earth. We know there is a lake, larger than Lake Ontario, that has been sealed in total darkness for 15 million years, a potential testbed for a completely separate path of evolution. We know that just a few years ago, scientists dropped a camera into a hole and found it swarming with complex, shrimp-like animals, thriving hundreds of kilometers from any known food source in a place that should be dead. We know that in 1946, the U.S. Navy sent an invasion-sized armada to Antarctica on a training mission, and that they fled weeks ahead of schedule with unexplained losses. And we know that at the absolute zenith of the Cold War, when the world was on the brink of nuclear annihilation, the two mortal enemies of the age, the US and the USSR, inexplicably and suddenly came together to sign a treaty, locking the entire continent away from all of us. You don't need to believe in Nazi flying saucers or a hollow earth to see the conspiracy. The cover-up is real. It is written into international law. And now, finally, we know why. The greatest secret of Antarctica isn't an alien. It isn't a pyramid. It is 511 billion barrels of oil. It is a prize worth 44 trillion. It is a treasure that could crown a single nation as the undisputed ruler of the 21st century. And it is a prize that is currently sitting in the most disputed, overlapping, and contested territory on the planet, claimed by 3 different rival nations. The only thing stopping them from starting a war for it is a single piece of paper: the Antarctic Treaty, a treaty that is set to be reviewed and possibly dissolved in 2048. The ice is melting. The clock is ticking. The great storm that Admiral Byrd was allegedly warned about is almost here. But it is not an invasion from another world. It is a war for the last, richest prize of our own. The forbidden continent is no longer silent. Its glaciers are cracking, its weather is shifting, and its secrets, both ancient and economic, are beginning to thaw. What is truly hidden in the ice? A lost civilization, a gateway to another world, or just the reflection of our own greed and the seed of our next and final war? Until the ice fully reveals what it has hidden, Antarctica remains the last great unknown, a land of silence, science, and suspicion. The anomalies on the surface are just the beginning. They are the faintest outline of a mystery so vast, it is physically buried beneath kilometers of solid ice. While governments and online sleuths scan the surface for clues, scientists have been drilling down, piercing the frozen veil. What they have found is not a dead continent. It is a hidden, living, and impossibly ancient world, a place of profound biological and geological secrets that rewrite the very rules of life on Earth. For decades, it was just a theory. A massive, strange anomaly detected by radar, buried under the coldest place on Earth, the Russian Vostok station. Then, in the 1990s, the truth was confirmed. It was a lake, a liquid freshwater lake, one of the largest on the planet, bigger than Lake Ontario and containing more water than Lake Michigan. This is Lake Vostok. It is an inland sea, buried under 4,000 meters, nearly 2.5 miles of solid ice. It has been completely sealed off from the outside world, from the sun, from the air, for at least 15 million years. It is, for all intents and purposes, an alien ocean on our own planet, an ecosystem that has been evolving in total darkness and isolation since long before humans ever walked the Earth. The pressure is immense. The temperature of the water is a stable 3 degrees Celsius, below freezing, yet it remains liquid due to the crushing weight of the ice above. The scientific implications are staggering. If life can exist here, it can exist anywhere. It could be the blueprint for life on the frozen moons of Jupiter and Saturn, like Europa and Enceladus. After more than a decade of painstaking, agonizingly slow drilling, a Russian team finally breached the ice shield in 2012. They punched through the final layer and touched a world that had not seen our atmosphere for 15 million years. The first samples were immediately controversial. Critics worldwide claimed the drill bit and the kerosene-based drilling fluid had hopelessly contaminated the sample. And they were right. 5 known contaminant species were found in the water. But amongst that contaminated soup, they also found something else. At least one new bacteria species, a life form that is presently unknown to science with no matches in any international database. It was the first tantalizing hint of a truly alien biology. A second, supposedly cleaner sample was successfully retrieved by the Russian team in 2015. Its findings? They have never been published. The data from the second, more sterile mission into the alien ocean remains a complete mystery. But the official story of microbes is not the only one that has leaked from the Vostok anomaly. A far more terrifying account has been attributed to a whistleblower, Dr. Anton Podolka, who claimed to be part of the secret Russian project. His story, if true, changes everything. Podolka claimed the team discovered something monstrous in the lake's depths. He called it Organism 46b, a highly intelligent, 14-armed octopus-like creature. This being, he claimed, possessed a venom it could deploy from a distance of 150 feet, paralyzing its prey. But that wasn't the worst of it. The creature was a shapeshifter, with the ability to change its form and mimic other aquatic creatures. According to the horrific claim, the team only realized it could also assume the form of a human diver after it was too late, when one of the biologists was ripped to pieces by the creature. The story ends with the Russian military arriving, confiscating the specimen, and silencing the team with rumors of attempts to weaponize the creature's alien DNA. Is it a wild fabrication, a piece of terrifying disinformation, or is it the real reason the 2015 sample results were never ever published? The Vostok mystery remains locked away. But in 2021, on the other side of the continent, a New Zealand team gave us an unambiguous look into this buried, living world. They melted a small, 500-meter deep hole through a glacier, 500 kilometers away from the nearest open ocean. They lowered a camera expecting to see a sterile, dead, dark cavern of water. Instead, their camera feed exploded. It was swarmed, absolutely teeming with life. Hundreds of small, blurry orange creatures filled the lens. They were amphipods, complex shrimp-like crustaceans, not just surviving, but thriving in a place that our science said should be impossible. In an instant, the idea of Antarctica as a dead continent was shattered. If a complex ecosystem can flourish in a random, isolated cavern 500 meters down, what is flourishing in the 15-million-year-old ocean of Lake Vostok? What is living in the other 400 subglacial lakes we know are down there? This is the new reality. The ice is not a shield, it is a lid, and beneath it is a vast, interconnected, and living network of rivers and lakes, a hidden biosphere that we have only just begun to comprehend. Life is not the exception in the ice, it is the rule. The buried world is not just alive, it is monumental. Using ice-penetrating radar, the 21st century equivalent of a magic wand, scientists have finally peeled back the 5-kilometer-thick ice sheet. What they found beneath is not a flat, dead continent. It is a fully formed, ancient world, a topographical ghost preserved in perfect stillness. In 1958, a team of Soviet researchers detected something impossible beneath their feet, a massive mountain range. They called it the Gamburtsev Mountains. This is not a small chain of hills. It is a range the same length and height as the European Alps, with sharp peaks soaring up to 2,700 meters or nearly 9,000 feet high. A range of mountains as big as the Alps, and yet it is completely, totally invisible. It is buried under more than 600 meters of solid ice, a phantom landscape no human eye has ever seen. But the mountains are nothing compared to the canyons. In 2019, scientists mapping the Denman Glacier discovered the single most profound topographical feature on planet Earth. They found a canyon that, if the ice were removed, would plummet 3.5 kilometers below sea level. This is a chasm so deep it beggars belief. The lowest exposed land on Earth, the Dead Sea, is only 413 meters below sea level. This Antarctic canyon is nearly 8.5 times deeper. It sinks to a depth that is the same as the average depth of the entire Atlantic Ocean. Only in the deepest, darkest ocean trenches do canyons dip further. This is a scar on the planet's crust, and we didn't even know it existed until 2019 because it has been hidden, locked away for millions of years. But the deepest secret, the one that dwarfs all others, is a gravity anomaly in a remote part of East Antarctica. In the 1950s, researchers detected a huge area 243 kilometers wide where the pull of Earth's gravity is mysteriously weaker. For decades, no one knew why. Then, in 2006, a team from Ohio State University, using NASA satellite data, put forward a theory. That anomaly, they believe, is an ancient 480-kilometer-wide meteorite impact crater. It is a scar nearly 3 times larger than the Chicxulub crater, the impact that wiped out the dinosaurs. To create a wound this large, the asteroid would have had to be 40 to 50 kilometers wide. But it's the timing that is so terrifying. The researchers believe the impact happened sometime between 100 and 500 million years ago. This timeline lines up perfectly with the single greatest mass extinction event in our planet's history, the Permian-Triassic extinction, also known as the Great Dying. This was an apocalyptic event that annihilated 57% of all biological families, 81% of all marine species, and 70% of all land vertebrates. It was the closest life on this planet has ever come to being completely extinguished. We have never known what caused it. It could be that the Antarctic ice sheet this entire time has been hiding the murder weapon for our planet's greatest apocalypse. And it's been theorized that this one event, this one colossal impact, was so destructive that it severely weakened the Earth's crust, directly contributing to the breakup of the ancient supercontinent of Gondwana. The discoveries of buried lakes and phantom mountains are new, but the idea of a world beneath our feet is one of the oldest and most persistent in all of human history. It is a legend that spans cultures, continents, and millennia, a collective whisper that we are not living on a solid ball of rock, but on the thin, fragile skin of a hollow world. And the entrances to that world, the legends have always said, are at the poles. In the most ancient of times, Tibetan Buddhists believed the earth was hollow. They believed it housed an ancient kingdom called Shambhala, a land deep within Inner Asia populated by a race of supermen and women. These beings, they claimed, would occasionally venture to the surface via secret tunnels, and the Buddhists even posted guards at these entrances to protect their sacred secret. In India, the ancient epic poem, the Ramayana, speaks of the avatar Rama, a great blue being who came from deep within the earth. The Hopi tribe of northern Arizona has a creation story that is even more explicit. Their legends state that their ancestors were guided safely through 2 global cataclysms, a first world destroyed by fire and a second destroyed by ice, by a mysterious, cloud-like moving star. This star led them to a god, who in turn led them to the ant people. These ant people housed the Hopi deep within the planet, offering them safety in vast underground caverns. The Hopi word for ant is anu, and their word for friend is naki. Ant friends. Anunnaki. It is an echo that rings with impossible, ancient astronaut implications. For centuries, these were just myths. But as humanity emerged from the Dark Ages, the greatest scientific minds of the era began to look at the planet with new eyes. And, disturbingly, they came to the same conclusion. Edmund Halley, the man who discovered Halley's Comet, was not just an astronomer. In the late 17th century, he used Isaac Newton's own work on gravity to propose a stunning theory. He claimed the Earth was indeed hollow, with a shell about 500 miles thick. He theorized it contained an innermost core, was capable of supporting life, and even had its own atmosphere. He believed the shell and core rotated at different speeds, which he used to explain the movement of the magnetic poles. In the 1700s, the Swiss physicist Leonhard Euler, one of the greatest mathematicians in history, went even further. He too proposed a hollow Earth, but at its core he claimed there was a central sun. This inner sun, he argued, provided heat and light for the inhabitants of the inner Earth. And then Euler made the claim that would echo through history, all the way to Admiral Byrd's fateful flight. He claimed this inner world could be accessed through huge entrances, located at both the North and South Poles. This is the theory that captured the occult imagination of the Nazi Party. They were not just searching for whale oil in 1938. Hitler and the shadowy occultists in the SS were allegedly obsessed with finding the entrance to this inner world. They believed in the Hollow Lair, the Hollow Earth theory. They believed this was the origin of the Aryan race, the true supermen described by the Buddhists. The 1938 expedition to Neuschwabenland was not a resource mission. It was a quest to find the polar opening. It was a search for the Ariani, the masters of the central sun. And this is the terrifying context for Admiral Byrd's alleged diary. When his radio crackled to life and that Germanic accented voice welcomed him to the domain of the Ariani, when he saw the Flugelrads marked with swastikas, was he encountering a new subterranean race? Or was he, in 1947, 2 years after the war, stumbling upon the secret Nazi base that had successfully made contact? Had the Nazis found what they were looking for, and in doing so, inherited the keys to a kingdom and a technology that would make them the new masters of the world? We stand at a precipice, staring into a white abyss that has guarded its secrets for all of human history. We have followed the threads, from the satellite ghosts of impossible pyramids to the grainy, radar-mapped outlines of buried mountain ranges. We have chased the phantom of a green, temperate world, mapped by an impossible, ancient civilization, and then flash-frozen by a cataclysm that shifted the very crust of the earth. We have followed the footsteps of admirals into valleys of living mammoths and the jackboots of Nazis into the occult search for an inner kingdom. We have heard the whispers of whistleblowers, of 300-foot holes in the ice, of silent catatonic scientists, and of colossal, light-generating structures buried 2 miles down. We have listened to the tales of pale, 30-meter-tall humanoids rising from the black, frozen water, and of monstrous, shape-shifting entities lurking in 15-million-year-old lakes. And, unbelievably, we have found that the truth, confirmed by mainstream science, is in every way just as strange. A world of subglacial oceans teeming with life, a continent bleeding iron into the snow from an ancient trapped sea, a landscape of mountains and canyons grander than any on Earth, all hidden from sight. We have 2 worlds under the ice. One is a world of myth, of Ariani and Flugelrods, of Base 211 and the Vril. The other is a world of science, of extremophile microbes, colossal craters, and impossible swarms of life. The greatest mystery is that both of these worlds seem to exist at the same time in the same forbidden place. And now, we have the motive. We have the reason for the 1959 treaty, the reason for the Men in Black, the reason for the no-fly zones and the global pact of silence. 511 billion barrels of oil. A prize worth 44 trillion, enough to crown one nation the ruler of the 21st century. This is the Great Reckoning. The ice is melting. The clock is ticking. The 2048 review of the Antarctic Treaty is no longer a distant date. It is the starting gun for the most important resource rush in human history. This is the final, terrifying question. As the ice pulls back, what will we find first? Will we unearth the ruins of a lost golden age? Will we stumble upon a secret decades-old war between human and non-human forces still fighting for control of the inner world? Or is the truth simpler and so much darker? Is the greatest secret of all just the oil? Will we, in our mad dash for the last drops of the planet's wealth, simply drill and frack and burn our way through the ruins of Atlantis, destroy the last vestiges of a non-human intelligence, and melt the remaining ice, all without ever once stopping to look? What is the ultimate secret of Antarctica? Is it the beginning of our history, or is it the price of our end? The ice is watching, and it is waiting. This is the end of this file, but our investigation is never over. The world is full of secrets, and we are here to pull on every single thread. If you believe that these stories matter, that the truth is worth fighting for, then we need you to join this mission. If this journey sparked questions, if you believe more people need to know what's at stake at the bottom of the world, like this video and help spread the word. Share your own theories in the comments. What did we miss? What do you think Antarctica is truly hiding? And finally, if you want to be there for the next investigation, subscribe and ring that notification bell. We have a lot more files to open. Keep your minds open, and we'll see you in the next one.